At the end of 2025, I decided to move on from my Subaru WRX to buy Boston Autoblog's first ever year-long tester. And this year-long tester is the 2026 Volkswagen Tiguan SEL R-Line Turbo, which for months leading up to the purchase I felt was the best crossover money could buy, under $50,000. 3 weeks into ownership, and well, things took a turn for the worse. Well, this isn't good. We have a check engine light, and the digital dash is lit up like a Christmas tree. So, there's some bad news for the Tiguan. My year-long tester didn't even make it a month. So, I'm now in a Volkswagen's house. After picking up my second Volkswagen Tiguan at the end of January, it was going to be a couple of months before Volkswagen could fully diagnose the problems with the turbo. And eventually, they stumbled upon a software glitch. And in April, we got a software update. And since then, things have been actually rather great. I've experienced the highs and lows with this crossover. However, and this was always planned from the very beginning, whether things went great or they didn't, I want to know now, having put on 6,000 miles and have owned this vehicle for 6 months, what this crossover is worth on the used car market. The Volkswagen Tiguan does depreciate rather rapidly, but with this being a special vehicle, in my opinion, with the most horsepower and most upscale driving environments, maybe, just maybe, it will hold on to its value. So today, we're going to go to CarMax and see what this vehicle is worth, and hopefully, I didn't lose a lot of money on my purchase. All right, let's see what CarMax is going to offer me here for the Volkswagen Tiguan. So the first question you're probably asking is, why are you at CarMax? Well, they give you an offer, and they don't really pressure you to buy something else. Number two, CarMax is notorious for lowballing right now. This isn't 2020 anymore. This isn't during the pandemic when they were giving you top dollar. However, every dealership you pass, every dealership you're going to be going to get that trade-in offer, they use CarMax. So CarMax is the barometer for most used car prices and trade-ins. So this is going to be very accurate if I was to go to another dealership right down the street. So let's see what they offer me. I have a number in my head, and I'm hoping it's not below that, because if it is, that means the Tiguan has lost a lot more in value than I thought in just 6 months. So with there being a line and waiting for cars to be appraised and do a test drive, I'm on the lot taking a look at this 2022 Volkswagen Arteon SE R-Line. Now, with this being one of the last model years, this didn't get 268 horsepower and 258 pound-feet of torque. It has 300 horsepower and 295 pound-feet of torque, paired with the 7-speed dual-clutch automatic transmission. That is the setup that should be in the SEL R-Line Turbo for the Volkswagen Tiguan. What a great deal. I remember doing a review or a walkthrough. This was probably 7 years ago. It still looks great 7 years later, or at least for this model year, 4 years later. Full digital gauge cluster, also the older infotainment system from Volkswagen. This was the right blend. All right, guys, we gotta get a proper review of the Volkswagen Arteon at some point on the channel in the near future. 300 horsepower, 295 pound-feet of torque. The 7-speed dual clutch shifts very smoothly. It's not clunky at all like in the Volkswagen GTI. Very Audi-like in that way. It drives so smooth and upscale. And this was a car that came in below $50,000. Amazing. Essentially the modern interpretation of the Volkswagen Passat CC. This really truly is an executive sedan for the mainstream markets. I mean, you could cross-shop this with the A5, but this was an attainable A7 on the roadways at the time. Now, of course, you do notice the differences between the MQB and MLB Evo platforms, so it's not going to feel as refined. It's not going to feel as luxurious, but considering its price point at the time when these were brand new, what a steal. What an absolute steal. I have no idea why Volkswagen got rid of this car in the lineup. So after 2 hours of waiting and one test drive later, I have the appraisal. Drum roll, please. I'm going to put this on the screen. And they offered me $36,000 even. So brand new for the Volkswagen Tiguan SEL R-Line Turbo, MSRP comes in at just under $45,000. Throw on taxes and fees, and ultimately the Tiguan has depreciated close to $9,000, if not more. Thankfully, I did not pay MSRP, at the end of December, there was some very aggressive incentives, and I paid about $5,000 below MSRP. So I'm actually doing okay with this offer, but I know some of you probably didn't get a deal like that, and there's a pretty steep decline in depreciation. So Volkswagen, once again, with their notorious depreciation, but CarMax is also notorious for lowballing right now. And I think a dealership, a regular dealership, depending on the deal, depending on the location, and depending on the certain situation that you're currently in, they could probably give you an extra $1,000 to $2,000 on top of this particular trade-in. Because let's be real here, looking at what SEL R-Line turbos are going for on the used market right now, obviously what they sell for is a whole different number. You're somewhere between $38,000 and $42,000, even with a model close to 6,000 miles, if not more, on the odometer. So I would not freak out at this number, and I'm not freaking out because it is above what I thought they were going to give me. But still, though, if you paid MSRP, that is a steep decline for sure. So I'm curious to see where we're going to be in 6 months near the end of the year. Near the end of the year, dealerships are very motivated to make a deal, and I think that's where you can get some extra money on your trade-in, especially during the hotter times of the year, because it is summer, it's July, slow time. I'm not going to freak out over this, but it is interesting. I'm glad I did this to get an idea as to what my crossover will be worth at the end of the year, and yeah, so depreciation on the Volkswagen Tiguan, it's the same as it was last generation. So with this new piece of information, where do I go from here? Well, it is my year-long tester, so I'm keeping it until January at the earliest. But I gotta say this now, having owned this vehicle for a total of 7 months and over 7,000 miles, if you are looking at buying one of these, purchase it used. Do not take that $10,000 depreciation hit with this crossover. I mean, you would think that with car prices being so high that vehicles would retain their value, and obviously Toyota and Honda would be the smarter choice. But I bought this vehicle because I felt it was going to be a more suitable choice over an Audi Q5, and I think a better option. And I'm going to stand here today right now and say that the Tiguan most certainly checks off that box. I think it is better than the Audi Q5. It is luxurious, it is comfortable, it is technologically advanced. And those features right there is what draws me into this vehicle and why I still think I made the right choice. Now, like I said before, that was CarMax's evaluation. And they do have a lot more pull, they have a lot more influence in the used car market than they did before. A lot of dealerships used to use KBB, they now use CarMax. And that is their barometer. That is the baseline. So like I said before, you could get better from a regular dealership, especially if you are trading it in for another vehicle. But either way, the depreciation is very bad here on the Volkswagen Tiguan, and having let this marinate for a bit, I'm a bit concerned about where we're going to be in December. So hopefully this video was a bit of help for you guys if you are looking at buying an SEL R-Line Turbo. I would say hold off, buy it used, buy a clean one if you can. But if you are someone who is looking at buying one of these new, with that software update, there has been a lot of problems with this generation now. So hopefully with the 2027 model, we see some improvements in the overall reliability and the tech glitches that we were plagued with earlier in this year. But I gotta say here with the Volkswagen Tiguan, I can't complain. Took it out for a longer road trip to Watkins Glen a couple of weeks ago. It was comfortable, it was relaxing, it was practical, it did everything I wanted it to do, and that was the big test, and the Tiguan passed with flying colors. So as a daily driver, it's phenomenal, but from a financial perspective, it might be a disaster.